This is Support is Sexy, episode 511. Why you win by being your true self. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Support is Sexy. I'm happy to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. And if you're listening to this in real time, today is Monday, July 23rd, and just a week from today, 2018, I should say, and just a week from today, I will be in Valencia, Spain, starting my new journey, a new chapter, living in 12 countries over the next 12 months as part of a program called Remote Year. If you're new to the podcast, you'll hear me talk a lot more about it. If you've been here for a while, you know I'm gearing up for this journey. So as part of that, to make sure that you stay inspired and fed during this time that I am preparing for this trip, doing some traveling before the trip, which might not have been a good idea, but I'm doing it anyway. I want to make sure that you stay fed. So giving you episodes of the Support is Sexy podcast that are rewinds, episodes that really resonated with me and that you say resonated with you over the past 2 years. So since the very beginning, we've done episode 26 with Patricia Moreno very early on, and then we have some much more recent episodes. And today's rewind, I know, will not disappoint. This conversation is with New York Times bestselling author Luvvie Ajayi. In this episode, I love that Luvvie spoke to us about a lot of great things about how she built her blog into a huge brand, how she was continuing to build at that time, turned it into a book, how she had other deals and things on the table, such as a development deal with Shonda Rhimes. But one key thing that really stuck out for me, and I got emails from people about this, she spoke about really not comparing yourself to other people and how you win by being your true self. So not getting caught up in what everybody else is doing, or we spoke about your numbers, you know, whether that's your blog, for me, your podcast or your videos or whatever you're doing, getting caught up in what everyone else is doing. What about you? What is unique about you? What do you bring to the table? And Luvvie is an example of someone who wins and is winning by being true to herself. So I know you're going to enjoy today's rewind. So without further ado, Luvvie Ajayi. So Luvvie, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
That is hard to say. I think falling in love with entrepreneurship isn't one of those things that happens with the flip of a switch. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that happens when you realize that you might not be as well suited to work in an office anymore.
Is that how it happened for
you? Yeah, it was kind of like, okay, just make it happen, make it work. That's essentially how it happened for me.
Do you feel like you're in love with it, though? Because some people I talk to say they either accidentally fell into it, or as you said, it sort of you decided this is something I have to do. And then some people actually love it. I go back and forth with it.
Yeah, I think I accidentally fell into it, but I do love the freedom that it gives me. I love the fact that every day I wake up not knowing what my day would look like necessarily. And it's exciting to be able to build the life that I want for myself.
What kind of life did you think you were going to have as far as career?
Growing up, I thought I was going to be a doctor. Like, all my life would have been telling me, you're going to be a doctor. And I was like, all right, cool. That sounds good. Mm-hmm. And I was on that road. And when I started college, I went in with a psychology pre-med major.
Where was this?
University of Illinois. Mm-hmm. So I started my college career fully thinking that I was going to end up being a doctor. So when I started and I took chemistry, my first semester, I ended up getting my first D ever.
In life?
in life. It was my first D ever. And I was like, ooh, see, I actually made an effort and I still got a D. And I basically had to have a come to Jesus moment with myself where I was like, I don't even like hospitals. So this whole doctor thing is probably not going to work out. So I dropped the pre-med piece, but I kept the psychology because I still loved psych. And I was like, well, I guess I can pivot and I can just do psychology. I can just go to grad school eventually and get my counseling master's degree. And yeah, somehow in college, writing and marketing took a hold, and that's what I ended up doing. I started my blog in 2003, my first blog in 2003, and that was my sophomore year that was my second semester of my freshman year of college.
That's when you started blogging.
Yes. So, and I ended up keeping that blog all throughout college. So up till August 2006, I graduated college in June. The blog basically kind of was me documenting my undergrad career. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had no expectations from the blog. I didn't, back then nobody really thought blogging was anything besides a hobby.
Mm-hmm. What drew you to it? Like, had you seen people start doing it and you were curious about it, or what made you decide to try it? Or was it sort of like journaling for you?
My friends started blogging and then they were like, you should start a blog. And I was like, okay.
That works.
Yep. That's essentially how that happened.
So you were in college and writing sort of took hold as you were a psych major, but did you think at that point that at any point that you would then become a writer, or were you still thinking I'm going to go and get my master's and then go on along this path that I'm already on?
I definitely wasn't thinking I was going to be a writer. Like, again, none of this was like by design. I didn't think writing was a really attainable career because I didn't know a lot of writers in real life or who were not, the Toni Morrisons. And so for me, it was just something that I loved to do. So I just did it.
Who would you say were some of your greatest influences growing up?
Not writers. My greatest influences. That's a good question. Honestly, I mean, people I knew in real life, my mom and my family members. I wasn't really looking to the outside world to be influencers for me. Like, I mean, of course, I'm a Black girl, so, I loved Oprah, but I don't really recall being very like outside influence obsessed in any way.
And you grew up for the most part in Chicago?
Yeah, I was born in Nigeria, and then we came here when I was 9.
Mm-hmm. What was that transition like, or that adjustment like?
Oh, massive adjustment. Coming from Nigeria, where everybody looked like me, my name, people can pronounce my name upon sight, to here, where I immediately was different because of the way I spoke, the way my name sounded. It was cold. So it was a massive adjustment. But, not 9-year-olds tend to make adjustment too. So I basically I looked at my classmates, tried to figure out how they spoke and mimic the way they talked to lose my accent. And I lost it I lost most of my Nigerian accent probably by first year of high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you think that experience, just that transition and then sort of having to figure out how to quote unquote fit in, how do you think that plays into who you are today? It's interesting because you're such a standout person today. Well, you always were, of course, right? But as a kid, we do what we have to do. But how do you think, if at all, that plays into who you've become today?
It was just all part of the lesson. I think, of course, when you're 9, you don't want to be different. You don't want to, nothing about being different is cool when you are in elementary school. So you do try to assimilate in the way you can. You try to make sure you wear the same things as everybody else and you like the same things. But, as I grew up, probably college, I realized that there's the things that make you different basically make you kind of awesome. So you have to kind of own that, because I mean, you can't really run away from who you are. It's not the best way to handle anything. And I think, it's a lesson that you learn growing up. Again, when you're 9, no one is you're not trying to hear, oh man, you're really cool that you don't talk like everybody else. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that, it's a learning experience. It's a learning experience.
Do you find yourself now, and because you're moving in such different spaces, figuring out how to adapt at all to the environments, or is it now really being able to embrace just who you are?
Now it's really embracing who I am. Like I need to always feel like myself. That's important. I need to always make sure that I never try to be anybody else but who I am. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important as a point of example too, because, a lot of times when you're young, you base how you move around in spaces on how comfortable it makes other people. Mm-hmm. But I think once you're older, you kind of just have to scrap that and be like, you know what? If people are not going to like me, they're not going to like me because they don't like me. I'm not going to try to fake the funk and then still not have them like me. What's the point?
Right.
What is
exactly.
the point?
Right.
So you might as well
like
just
the
be
real
yourself.
You. Right.
Exactly. Like it's just too much effort to try to be somebody else a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned being awesome a few minutes ago. Tell us about the origins of your blog, Awesomely Luvvie. How did it all start? When did it begin for you? You've been blogging, obviously, as you said, since college, but when did you decide to really dedicate your time to it?
So I started my first blog in 2003, had that all the way till I graduated college. I deleted that blog once I graduated because I was like, I've kind of outgrown this. Mm-hmm. I also don't want to write really about my personal life anymore. So I deleted that blog and started what is now awesomelyluvvie.com, where I was just talking about life, culture, TV, and really anything that I felt like talking about. I had a full-time job as a marketing coordinator for a nonprofit then. So I would go to work till 5 and come back and blog just because it was something I liked doing. Again, I didn't think it was anything that was going to take me anywhere. It was just something that I thought was cute. Mm-hmm. So I blogged. I kept on blogging over the years, and then it started getting more people started reading it. And I started realizing that it was getting more attention than I thought. And then in April 2010, I got laid off my job, and it was that's the last time I've had a full-time job. It was kind of the universe pushing me to take the leap of faith I wasn't going to take myself.
Mm. Was it a leap though that you wanted to take but weren't going to take yourself, or like you said, you weren't even thinking about it really?
I mean, at that point, I'd been blogging for 6 years. Mm-hmm. 7 actually. So clearly this is something that I was putting energy into, but I still wasn't thinking about it as a career. Because again, there's no blueprints for that. There's no guarantees. It's not like an accounting career where you're like, okay, you get your degree, become an accountant. Blogging, there was nothing set for blogging, and it's hard to kind of say, yes, let me go into this unknown territory and see what happens. So for me, it was one of those things that I was like, okay, clearly I wanted to do it, but I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to just be like, yes, I'm a blogger now, full time. Mm-hmm. I wasn't ready, or I thought I wasn't ready.
So the universe gave you that push.
Yeah, for sure. And that's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote. Now, at that point, you continued blogging, but did you at that point think, I'm not going to get another job, I'm going to give this a try?
No, mm-hmm. I didn't. I was still looking for other full-time jobs. Again, I definitely was probably being stubborn, but again, it's kind of hard when you don't see a map. Like I was like, okay, so how would I make money to sustain myself with this thing that it's a crapshoot. But I was making money at that point doing digital strategy work, which is work I was doing when I had a full-time job, but I was doing it for other bloggers and small business owners. And so that kept me up for a second. That was actually pretty steady. I started designing websites. I started creating a career just as a thought leader in social media and marketing.
At what point did you know that you were onto something with the blog? Like, at what point did you feel like this is really working, or this could be more than I thought it could be? Was there a certain turning point?
Not necessarily one piece of turning point. It was just a gradual thing. Like my blog got bigger. I started getting awards for it. And then 2012, I was able to do press coverage at the Academy Awards. I got credentialed to do press on the red carpet and backstage. And I was kind of like, oh, wow, like I'm in this place where there are other people who work for $1 million outlets and I'm standing right next to them. So that kind of was like, okay, this is really cool. And then that was the year that Scandal started, and I started recapping Scandal, and that also took my blog to new levels. But I think throughout the whole thing, I was ignoring the message that this writing thing was what I was supposed to be doing, that and I should probably take it more serious than I was, in terms of seeing that there was something here. And there were times when I'd be like, oh, I should just stop writing. Like, why am I doing this? I'm not even making any money. I'm not, why am I doing this? And anytime I would kind of be like, maybe I should give this up, I'd get an email from one of my readers who's like, hey, reading your blog is the reason why I wasn't crying when I was sitting in the waiting room as my mother got chemotherapy. I'd get stuff like that was kind of pointing me to the point of like, you don't think this is mattering, but it actually is making a difference. And that would kind of spur me to keep going.
That's so important. I'm glad you shared that. Just those, I have those moments too. And sometimes it's just either you don't want to continue doing what you're doing, or sometimes you're just tired and you need, right? I'm sure in the past few years I'm sure you've had that experience and then that word comes from someplace unexpected. Like you said, a reader, or for me, a listener, or just running into someone or whatever it is. And the universe kind of sends you that little, not a push, but that tap, like, no, keep going this way. Exactly.
Right. That's really, and we don't really pay attention all the time or want to accept that. And it was that, but it kept me going. It definitely kept me going. And my audience has been incredible just by making sure that they support my work in a major way. And it's been,
One of the things I read about you is that you were never really focused on quote unquote numbers for the blog, that you really cared about, people's responses, or as you said, whether it's emails or comments or that kind of thing. And I know especially now people are so caught up in numbers. How do you feel like that was, or why did you decide, if it was a conscious decision, not to make numbers your main focus and really focus on the content and the people that you were connecting with?
It was important because here's the thing, like, I knew that I wasn't going to be competing with other blogs just because I'm not going to be competing with a gossip blog. I'm not going to be competing with a beauty blog, like in terms of numbers. I'm not going to be the biggest blog out here ever in terms of pulling in pure page views and, oh my gosh, she has 30 million followers. No. And that was because it's not doable. I was one person. A lot of blogs are
teams of people,
teams. Right? And I was one person. So it was important that I focused more on my content, and I focused more on how to get people to fall in love with my work, so that I would be able to curate an experience that they couldn't get anywhere else. Like that was important, because here's the thing, being the biggest blog does not also mean you have the best audience. being the biggest blog does not mean you get the best opportunities. I wanted people to look at my work and be like, oh man, there's nothing else like it. So I never played the numbers game. Mm-hmm. I never purport myself that I would be the biggest person doing this one thing, but I wanted to be one of the best. So I built a really, really amazing community of people, and I engaged with them like they were basically the best friends I had in my head. Mm-hmm. And it was able to bring opportunities that even bigger blogs weren't getting, because people knew, hey, if you go with Luvvie, she will make sure that your content rises above the noise. People will know that the content that I create is trustworthy. So mm-hmm. that was another thing. In playing the numbers game, sometimes you kind of lose your voice,
right,
in the attempt to get bigger.
Right.
And you can't, and that's one thing you can't afford to do, because I've always been able to stand out because of my voice, because of how I've approached any type of topics that I was covering, because no one could try to write like me. I mean, they could try to write like me, but it wouldn't fully work.
They weren't you.
They weren't me. And there's funny times, and the times I realized it worked, like my approach worked, is when I would get some type of offer, and people would be like, oh, can you do this? And I'll say, oh, I can't do it for one reason or another. Like, oh, I'm busy. And they'll ask me, well, who's another Luvvie that we can go to? And I'd be like, oh, I actually don't know. And it was an honest answer. Like, I couldn't tell them who else could do what I do in the way I do it. And I was like, okay, this works.
Right.
But it wasn't because, and I am somebody who I would definitely pass on opportunities. I'll say, I don't know, they're not another Luvvie, and that's okay. However, this person's also good for this. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, that definitely was a piece that I was like, all right, doing pretty well then, if somebody's looking for me specifically.
Right,
and
for another me.
Another me, yeah.
But that's too when you realize you have a very singular voice. Like you said, no one else can do you as well as you can.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
And because as you mentioned earlier about the importance of not trying to be someone else.
Exactly.
Excellent. So now, what do you think, what would you say your advice is to whether it's bloggers, people just starting out, or writers? I have a lot of younger people in media or wanting to get into media who listen to the podcast. What advice would you have for them about how to differentiate themselves?
Be yourself, honestly. And it feels very simple, but being yourself is how you can differentiate yourself. Like, you have to pick a lane that is really you. Like, as in, figure out what it is that you love to do and then do it really well. Mm-hmm. That's been the key for me. And I just love to make people think and laugh. And I kind of love to side eye folks. So I just did it really well.
Queen of the side eye.
Look, okay. Yes.
One of the things, just to go back to too, that you mentioned about numbers related to your blog though, but would you say the same as far as social media? And I ask that because I think some of us get caught up in, well, this person has bigger numbers, so they must fill in the blank, as opposed to what is your engagement with your audience on social media as well?
Oh, engagement fully matters. Again, don't play the numbers game. It's right. It's just a trap, because one, all it's going to do is make you feel like you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? Because you'll be like, why am I not doing as well as this? Do you have a team of 15 behind you? Okay, then. So it's not even fair for you to make the comparison. That's one. And two, it's not kind of like, I know it's kind of weird to say this, but you don't have competition.
What do you mean?
Like, people think about, oh my goodness, this person's my competition. You don't have competition, because you are your only competition. Like, blogging, there's millions and millions and millions of blogs. Technically, everybody can be considered my competition. But truly, my only competition is me, because when it comes down to it, I control what I end up doing. I control how I end up being seen, kind of like, let me see how to put this. Do not look. So basically, you feel like you're running this race, right? You feel like you're running a race that, okay, and then you keep looking to the side and seeing what other people are doing. It's going to distract you from yours. Really, you are in your own lane. If you are in your race, so run your own best time. Don't worry about whoever else is next to you, because if you run your best time, then you've done your best work. Just do your best work. That is the only way that you can really succeed in this. Otherwise, you will spend so much time trying to figure out how other people are doing theirs.
That's right. And to go with your analogy of a race, I was thinking about it as you were speaking. Even when you are actually racing in track or professional racing, they look at what was your time in the last race. It's always a comparison to your own time before. Are you getting faster?
Exactly.
How do you get better? How do you train to beat your last time?
Exactly. So it's like, again, you are your only competition. And that's why and it's tempting sometimes to look around and be like, what are other people doing that I'm not doing? It is very tempting. But you have to bring it back to yourself and just be like, nope. That is not my business. What other people are doing are not my business. It's not my business. I just need to do what I need to do. If you do that, you'll be okay. Because at least you know that I did the best I can do, not I was doing the best somebody else could do.
Another thing, too, for people listening to be aware of, I think it's Lisa Nichols who says this, but I love this analogy, the importance of not comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 27. So sort of what you said about, what you said about teams, we're comparing ourselves to someone who might have a team, or sometimes you don't even, you think you know what someone else is doing to make it happen. You have no idea. So if you're someone who's just starting out with something or new at something, but you're comparing yourself to someone who's already creating their chapter 27, it makes no sense to compare in any way.
Yeah, it just keep it moving. And I think, there are times when I'll get emails from people. Somebody has actually emailed me to be like, how can I become you?
Wow.
And I've been like, that's weird. Because the whole thing, the point of all of this is not for you to become somebody else. And I can't tell you how to become me. I can tell you exactly what I did in my journey, but I can't tell you this is how you become me, because here's the thing. 2 people can do the exact same thing and get 2 very different results.
Right.
And I've been very transparent about my journey. Like, I've told people my story. I've told people how I did what I've done. So it's not like I'm walking in secret, like, oh my God, nobody can know exactly how I got here. No, I tell you exactly how. You can try to employ the same exact tactics and get completely different results. So it's one of those things that I just want people to understand. Like, you can't replicate somebody else's journey, because that's their journey. And it's not for you to replicate. You got your own walk to do.
That's right. Now, I've read that you wrote a vision statement some time ago, and many of those things on your vision statement either have come or are coming into fruition. So I wanted to ask you to tell us the importance of vision, or the role vision has played in your life, and what you'll definitely include on your next vision statement.
So my vision statement that I wrote was in 2010. I was a part of the New Leaders Council, which is an organization that kind of teaches progressives all these different tools. And my mentor nominated me for the first Chicago chapter, and I was picked for it. So our first weekend, we were told to write a vision statement as if it's 10 years down the line, and we're updating somebody that we know. We're updating somebody that we know about our lives. So I wrote this vision statement about how I am a New York Times bestselling author. I am running a global nonprofit called the Red Pump Project. And let me see, what was the third one? New York Times. And I do social media around the world, and I teach social media trainings around the world. So 2 months later, I got laid off my job. But that month, my nonprofit, the Red Pump Project, which I started the year before, got a congressional record from the U.S. House of Representatives. And then a month later after that, I got an email from a book agent who's like, hey, I read your blog. There's a book here. And I realized, I was like, oh my goodness. But I had forgotten I'd even written this vision statement.
What did you do with the vision statement? Had you put it away, or was it something that you had up somewhere?
No, I had put it away. Mm-hmm. Like actually, I put it away, and about a year later, I found it, and I was like, oh my goodness, everything in there was starting to come true, including me doing the social media trainings. Like I actually started getting hired to do trainings at different conferences. So 2015 is when all of it basically came true, in that I finally hit the New York Times bestselling list. I finally wrote my book, and it hit the New York Times list the week it came out.
Yay! Which is amazing. No small feat.
Thank you. And then the year before, I had actually spoken. At that point, I'd done social media trainings in Haiti, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Kenya. And then Bread Pump, my nonprofit, had actually gone to Haiti with the U.S. Embassy to do workshops about safe sex and HIV and AIDS awareness to 900 young adults. So everything in that vision statement basically come to fruition. For me, it was one of those things that's kind of like, okay, writing it down, making it plain, but also putting in the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is writing a vision statement something you continue to do now, or will continue to do?
Yeah, I did one in 2000. I did one recently. I can't remember. 2000. Let me see. We're in 2017 right now. Mm-hmm. I did one in 2015.
And is there anything on there that you would share yet, or not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. You gotta let us know.
Nope.
So did you put that same practice, you put that one away?
Yes. I actually don't remember what I said in it.
So what would you say then for people listening, as far as, well, I believe in writing things down too, but just the importance too of having the vision and dreaming it bigger than, how would I say this? Bigger than where you are at the moment, if that makes sense. Not being afraid to dream that way.
That it's just important to see what you want clearly and then say it, even if you're just saying it to yourself. I think there's something about it that's just powerful. And I make a habit of doing it.
Now, as you mentioned, your book, I'm Judging You, The Do Better Manual, is a New York Times bestseller, and it was number 6?
Number 5.
Number 5. That is amazing. Now, what would you say that people misunderstand about the book publishing process? Because I know that's something a lot of people just don't talk about.
Oh gosh, there's a lot that people misunderstand about book publishing. I think it's just super layered. Mm-hmm. People think you get a book deal and then you get rich, mm-hmm. and that's not really how it goes, unless you're J.K. Rowling. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting industry because you will work hard. You will have to be the biggest champion of your book. You just have to do really good work.
I think, as you mentioned, being a champion of your book, that's something just for those people listening who are writers or authors don't necessarily understand, too. The publisher isn't necessarily going to set up all the interviews and the book tour and all the things that we see the author doing. So that's why I just keep mentioning with you how much work goes into making your book a New York Times bestseller or, just a successful book in general. There's so much work involved in that.
Oh, absolutely. It is. Like, again, with anything that you do, you have to always keep in mind that you are your biggest champion. You have to be the biggest champion. Like, you don't assume people will just support you. Like, don't think, okay, just because I have an audience, all I have to do is just mention it one time and they'll flock to my book. No, you have to keep reminding people, hey, I've done this thing. I'm always surprised by the amount of people who still don't know I have a book. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, I think I talk about it all the time. They're like, no, I hadn't heard about it. Oh, wow. So just know it's a steady drumbeat.
And they say even when people hear about things, many of us need to hear about it at least 7 times. There's been studies on that before it kind of sinks in, Right. So people just need to, people have no attention spans. So don't assume people would just know. And that goes along too, do you think, with someone like you, for example, you have a huge audience already, but even still, you have to make sure that your audience and other people outside of your audience know about what you're doing. Because sometimes I think people think, oh, well, they have a big audience, so of course their book did whatever, and it's still so much goes into it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Like there are a lot of people with big audiences whose books do not hit New York Times bestselling list, or who don't even end up doing that well. Just because, again, people take for granted that they have an audience. People will say, oh, I already have an audience. They're good. They're going to buy it. No, don't assume that people will spend money on you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't assume that them handing over their coins is a foregone conclusion. That's not it at all. So you just have to work, and then you have to convince them why they should hand you this money. Why do they need to, why will they get something good from it? Convince people that it is worth handing their money over.
Excellent. Now tell us about your deal with Shonda Rhimes and what stage you're in.
So my book got optioned to be turned into a TV show by Shonda Rhimes.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it's going to be turned into a cable series. My deal. So where we are right now is where I'm basically developing what this world looks like. Like, what is this character like? Who is around her? What does this world look like? That's basically where we are. And optioning is not like guaranteed that it will turn into a TV show.
So it's sort of in development?
In development. Yep.
And are you the primary writer on it, or coming up with as you said, coming up with the story and what the character is going to be and then presenting it?
Yeah, I'll be a writer on it. And of course there'll be a writing team, so it won't just be me. But yeah, I'm writing on it.
So speaking of team, what does your team look like now? Because you have grown and been doing so many different things over the past few years. What does your team look like? Your support network, in other words.
I have a couple of assistants. I have a manager. I have my agents. I have my attorneys, because they have to review every contract.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Yeah, that's my team.
What keeps you grounded as far as self-care? I know in July you took most of the month off to sort of re-energize. Is that important for you to take those breaks?
Oh yeah, like burnout is real when you've been working super hard and really high pace. You get tired.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically end up taking July off to kind of recharge my batteries and to kind of be quiet for a little bit and to get my bearings back. So yeah, it's really important. I think right now for me, making sure I am being very intentional about taking care of myself. That's where I am.
What would you say that entrepreneurship, or even just the past year or two, with you working so hard, has taught you about yourself as a woman?
It's taught me that my work is important, but my life is more important. Like, it's taught me that I can't neglect taking care of myself for the grind.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times you find, like, I was excelling really well in work, and then everything else was falling by the wayside. And how, like, that kind of had me be like, okay, you need to pause, because it was affecting how I was like functioning. And a lot of times we hear, we kind of hear people glorify the grind.
Right, rise and grind.
Yeah, rise and grind. Like, it gets exhausting. And I started realizing, okay, there's certain things that are important that I always have to make room for.
And learning to say no. Learning
to say no is so important. Like, also knowing that, yes, you're going to get a lot of opportunities, but also knowing when to say, you know what, this one, I'm going to sit this one out.
Now, speaking, and just a few more questions for you, 'cause I want to be conscious of your time, but speak to how difficult, or maybe not for you, but for a lot of people, they say when you are, especially on this trajectory where things are working and you're moving, and like you said, you're hustling, or what people say, grinding, things are working out, and then you get to the point where you feel like you need to start to say no to things. Is that difficult? And if so, how do you get through that?
It's so hard. Yes,
Right.
I all these things were being thrown at my feet. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, that's cool. I should do that too. Yep, I should do
Right.
that. And then I was saying all these yeses and then not functioning well. And then being like, you know what? What's the point? Like, what am I saying the yes for? Am I saying yes because it's a cool Instagram picture? Or am I saying yes because it's what I really need to be doing, the best way I should be spending my time? And it is hard to feel like you just said no to an amazing opportunity. Like I said no to something really, really cool that was happening in July. And I was like, I cannot believe I just said no to that. Am I sure I want to say no to that? And I was like, wait, you said no work in all of July. Do not make these exceptions. If you're supposed to have this, it'll come right back. So yeah, sometimes you're like, am I being ungrateful for saying no to this? Because 2 years ago, I would have jumped all over it.
Right.
I would have been like, absolutely, I will be there. I don't care if I don't have to get any sleep. I will be there. But now, I'm like, nah, I'm good.
I think it's so important that you said that too, just because a lot of us, I mean, even if it's someone listening who's in a certain job that they don't love anymore, or that they think they need a break from, whatever it is, and being fearful because you think, well, I should be happy because, or I should be grateful because, or like you said, I would have been dying for this a year ago, but it's sort of where you are now and what's healthy for you right now.
Right. Like I can't say yes to everything. Like my travel schedule, for example, has been crazy as I go all over the place and I'm doing 1,500 things and I'm at all these things, and I found that like I started missing home. Like it started affecting me because I was like, I just want to be at home.
And you just bought a house, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, just knowing what's important and knowing what my priorities are and not being distracted by what might be cool to do, and knowing what's important.
And knowing, like you said, it'll come back if it's for you.
Exactly.
So in closing, Luvvie, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
My mother. I would definitely thank my mother because she's the person who's responsible for kind of who I am. And even me being able to be this person, my mother for sure, she's been a huge supporter. I've always knew that I had her as my safety net. So yeah, just, and kind of like how she's raised me to be this person who has service as a piece of importance. So yeah, for sure, my mother, without question.
Excellent. So now tell us how we can support you. Of course, I'll have links to everything and Red Pump Project and all the wonderful things that you talked about. But tell everybody listening where they can find you, social media, of course, websites, all that good stuff.
I can be found all over the web. First of all, I am Luvvie everywhere. Luvvie on every social network. And then, if you haven't bought my book, buy my book. That would be a huge way to support me. Yep. So if you go to I'mJudgingYouBook.com, you'll see all the links to where you can find it. It's everywhere where books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, independent bookstores. It is everywhere. So you can buy I'm Judging You, the Do Better Manual.
And it's so funny. I was cracking up reading it.
Thank you.
Of course, absolutely. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
I would say under promise and over deliver in life, in general, in work, in your everyday. Just under promise and give people the world, but only promise like a street.
I love it. Luvvie, thank you so much. Hold on for just a second. All right. I hope you enjoyed that rewind with Luvvie. She also has a new podcast herself out since we spoke last. Rants and Randomness, I think it's called. She also has a podcast with Yvonne Orji, the actress on Insecure. So Luvvie is doing a lot to get caught up with. But no matter what, you can find out more about her and all that she's up to and all the links and the ways to follow her and find out more about what she's doing at supportissexypodcast.com. Just go to the search icon at the top and search Luvvie, Luvvie. Her show notes page will pop up with links and resources and, again, the ways to find out more about what she's up to. Supportissexypodcast.com and just search Luvvie. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. I look forward to sharing more with you tomorrow, so make sure you come on back or just go on to the next episode if you're binging. Thank you for being here either way. I appreciate you. As I say, it wouldn't be the same without you. And until we chat again, always remember, support is sexy, and having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.